Written on the Pitch is back. Jessica Charman is back. How are you, Jess?
Doing well. It's been a while, Jason. We've been staying busy, but always a blessing to find an opportunity to carve out some time to chat with you.
Yeah, there's some stuff to get into as well. It's a busy summer, and it's kind of a busy time, even though the first team is on a break with the international break going on right now. You're doing games with Peachtree City MOBA. I'm doing a couple of games there. I'm doing an NPSL game tomorrow. The twos are going on. There's just tons of stuff right now. And what I want to start with is a team that I don't think we've talked about really yet. We've talked about the U.S. women. We haven't talked about the U.S. men. And they had a big game last night. We talked about it a lot on SDH today. Bart Keeler joined us. He'll have his breakdown on the Soccer for U.S. pod. Later previewing the final against Mexico, but the U.S. had to suffer through the match with Honduras before they found the breakthrough. What do you think of the U.S. men in the Nations League last night?
Ooh, yes, it was a battle. We'll call it that, and it wasn't maybe the game that we'd have expected, particularly against this opposition. 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's a compliment to international soccer to see how that gap has been closed. I think a lot of the time, and I do it the same with England, you get complacent when you're playing these smaller nations because in the past you've expected to wallop against these teams, and now these teams have quality players because they have the opportunity to play at high levels, and they really could have, we'll talk about it, but they could have gone ahead. The US could have conceded, so they grinded out a result. But I wouldn't say they were the best team, and it definitely wasn't the most convincing of performances from the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, they were better than Honduras. I don't think by much, but they were better. But one moment where Zach Steffen did not come up big, because he had a couple of saves. He had one late on Albert Ellis after the lead was already taken by the U.S. He had another one where he came off his line well, but one moment where he really struggled, it's something that you as a goalkeeper, I'd love to get your perspective on. It felt like he badly misjudged a deep cross, and those feel like the ones that can be the most difficult.
Yeah, he got it all wrong. And one of the things we talk about in goalkeeping is making your decision and sticking with it, and he did that. He made the wrong decision and he stuck with it, and he was in no man's land flapping. And thank goodness there was a recovering defender in Sargent to come back and head it off the line because he had no right going for that ball. It was terrible judgment of what should have been an easy call. It wasn't one of those where it's borderline. They've given a great delivery in between the back line and the 6-yard box where the goalkeeper and the defender's not sure who was going to go for it. It should have always been an away call, and he came flapping and it was unconvincing. And again, if it wasn't for the recovering defender, he'd have had to have put his hands up and apologized. However, you've got to think about how many minutes he's had. And as goalkeepers, it is hard if you don't have those match-like situations to stay sharp. And we've seen him with a couple of performances when he has been able to play in the domestic league as well, looking a little shaky at times with the positioning. And I would be slightly concerned if I was Zach Steffen right now.
Yeah, we went through it on the watch-along last night. He played in 5 League Cup games. He played in 5 FA Cup games. He played in 1 Premier League game and 1 Champions League game last season. So he got 12 games out of, in total, around 50 or so.
And it's the way they're sort of dipped in random places. There's never a consistent streak where he played 5-6 games to find some rhythm. It's, okay, you're going to play here, then you're going to sit on the bench for 3 games. You're going to play here. And that's really difficult for a goalkeeper. And unfortunately for him, when you're in that mindset, you have to make those minutes that you get count. And as I say, he had a few shaky moments in the domestic season too. I remember a couple of ones where he sort of came out and got caught in no man's land. And this was similar, but this time he wasn't punished.
Is he kind of in that tough in-between spot where when he first went to Europe, he went out on loan and played a lot, and it's almost like he's seen as too good to be away on loan, but obviously not good enough to start over one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and Ederson. But he needs to play, so it's this really tough conundrum for him.
100%. He's still young. I think he's about 26, 27, but you need to play as a goalkeeper. Yes, you have time, you have your prime, but at the end of the day, if he wants to play for the national team, and he is the best pick really for the national team, he needs to get minutes to stay fresh and perform. It's a really tough one because you're almost punished for being the second best goalkeeper. Sometimes it's better to be the third choice goalkeeper because you can go off on loan or you can play for the reserve team. We saw Alec Khan in a similar position for Atlanta United, where he would be on the bench for the first team, but deep down as a goalkeeper, sometimes you want to break away. All you want to do is play. You're not content with being sat on the bench. And for Stefan, who again, as we mentioned, wants to play for the US national team, he's not a goalkeeper that's just trying to get a paycheck from sitting on a bench. He needs minutes and he knows that. So it's a tough one for him. And I'm sure part of him would wish he would go out on loan and be able to get some consistent soccer under his belt.
It's a tough spot. I mean, we've talked about it during the Premier League season with Christian Pulisic at Chelsea. I kind of had the feeling that if he wasn't going to be a starter going into the next season, and I don't think he is, I don't know if that's changed, that for the national team side of his career, he needs to move on and go somewhere else. And it sounds like he might.
And it's all about where your priority is, isn't it? Because there's players that really care about making a big name for themselves domestically, but then there's players who truly want to represent their nation. And without stereotyping, I think the US, just because of that patriotism, a lot of players to put on that jersey, it means so much that you might see him make a move. And you saw, with the Champions League final, he didn't get that start. And unfortunately, and I remember watching an interview over the weekend about how he's turning into a super sub, much to his displeasure to that name. And when it's a catch-22, you're effective as a super sub, so they keep you in that role, but no one really wants to be a super sub. They want to play the full 90.
It's two guys who are critical to the U.S. men's national team over a very busy next year with Gold Cup, where I don't think either one factors in, but then World Cup qualifying with 14 games that start in September in a pretty short period of time, that you need your goalkeeper, who is your number one right now. I think Greg Berhalter's made that clear. And your maybe most impactful, or at least second most impactful, attacking player to be playing. It's a little worrisome for Greg Berhalter, I think.
Definitely, because there's nothing like, we talk about it all the time, real competitive minutes. You can be practicing with some of the best players in the world that you're getting to do by being at these huge teams, Man City, Chelsea. You're playing with incredible players, but you're not getting to compete week in, week out on a match day. And look, I don't know about this crazy season with the Premier League and however many games, Man City and Chelsea played between European soccer and the league. But when it comes to the regular season, that fatigue isn't going to be such a problem in a short space of time. So they want to play matches and they don't want to be over fresh for playing international games. They want to be ready and switched on and, well practiced in real game situations.
Yeah, I think the Stefan mistake last night really felt to me like somebody who is just not sharp at the moment, because...
And you know what, Jason? Someone that was so desperate to maybe make an impact on the game. I've been in those positions where as a goalkeeper, you kind of are trying to prove yourself so much that you end up trying to do something that you almost know is out of your reach.
Right.
But it's that thing where you want to show that you can do it. And it almost looked like he was trying too hard, and then it backfired.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because it feels like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, in that situation, the goalkeeper on that deep looping cross, that the goalkeeper has to make a decision early about, do I go for it and punch or catch, or do I stay and let my defenders deal with it? And he kind of went halfway, because he went, but he didn't put his hands up.
And that's it. I think he realized once he'd moved his feet, he realized, I've done this wrong. But instead of instantly retracting and getting in position and set, he sort of just stood there, and that's why it looked so bad from the fan perspective, because he was truly in no man's land, not really making a play on the ball, which made the header a pretty easy header. And as we said, the recovery by Sargent was literal perfection, honestly, and he saved his goalkeeper. And like you say, I think it was just poor judgment, and a lot of that comes from lack of reps and lack of competed reps. You can drill in as many crosses as you want in a practice session, but you're not going to have that crowded area as often. You're not going to have your defenders and forwards and realistic competitiveness when it comes to challenging for the ball. And it's a lot easier to go for that sort of delivery when you're not going through a crowd. And it looked like he had almost made that decision as if he wouldn't have any obstacles in his way.
So the U.S., they got it done. They got the win. Jordan Subachu comes off the bench. It's a well-worked goal to get the lead from John Brooks to Weston McKennie. I think good movement off the ball from Brendan Aronson to open things up. Subachu buries the header. Had to sweat a little bit at the very end. Brooks got nutmegged by Ellis inside the 18. That's where I thought Stefan came up with a big play late when he had to on kind of a cross from Ellis, who I thought might go to goal, and Stefan kind of snuffed it out. In general, as you look ahead now to a Nations League final against Mexico, who was not impressive last night, needed penalties to get past Costa Rica, what do you think the U.S. has to do better to lift the trophy on Sunday?
Firstly, better game management, because you're talking about the fact they scored a goal late, like right before stoppage time, and they still gave up an opportunity for Honduras to get an equalizer. So against Mexico, potentially against a stronger opposition, a team that's going to enjoy the ball more, that's probably going to create more chances. If you're able to nick a goal, particularly if it's against the run of play, you have to have better game management to shut up shop and not give away opportunities, because Mexico are going to punish you. So I'd like to see better game management, better clinical finishing, and then they're going to need to be stronger, because it was a battle out there, and there may have been some gamesmanship going on with some of the injuries and the stretches and all of that jazz. But against Mexico, it's going to be a equally as physical game, if not harder. So it's about dealing with that gamesmanship and taking it with the right mentality and not letting it get in your head when there are moments like that. Because I remember listening this morning on your guys' show and talking about how it was a new experience for a lot of these players to deal against these sorts of oppositions and to deal with frustrating decisions and time wasting and all of these things. And that shows character, and that shows the mental side of the game. And I think that's really an underplayed component of a successful team. And that's dealing with mental challenges as well as physical and skill-based challenges.
Yeah, it was something that came up last night. I think Sebastian Lletget was the U.S. player who spoke on it. And he said, you see the time wasting, you see the stuff that the camera doesn't catch. It makes it really tough. European teams, that's a different way of playing, a different approach. It is different. It doesn't mean that European teams don't waste time in games. We know that. and we're not going to start the argument about the English don't dive, because they've been doing that since 1990 and beyond and going further back. We know this. We know this.
Yeah, facts.
It's different, though, with what CONCACAF, and I think to an extent as well, CONMEBOL, which is different than CONCACAF, it's different because different parts of the world are different. There's different things that are accepted.
Subtleties versus blatantness, I think, sometimes might be one of the bigger things. But you know what? It's part of the game, and we can call it an unfortunate part of the game, but it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not sure the solution on getting rid of it, apart from treating feigning an injury the same as potentially treating it the same as feigning a foul. Maybe you have to go to your cards if you notice, we didn't always have yellow cards for simulation in the game.
Yeah.
And has it stamped down on simulation? Not completely, but it sure as hell, particularly with VAR now, embarrasses people when they go back and look at it and they realize they dived. It's clearer than ever that you're not going to get away with it anymore. So maybe that's where they make some law changes in the future, but it's definitely not going to go anywhere within the next competitive matches. So it's something that people are going to have to get used to and sort of, I don't want to say suck it up, but that would probably be the way I would phrase it.
I'd love to see referees get back to showing more yellows for simulation, and I would love to see them in those moments where It's wait for the stretcher crew to come on. Oh no, I'm okay. I don't need to be stretchered off. Okay, then here's a yellow card for your trouble. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that done more.
And I have noticed that actually. I've been shocked at the amount of times that we've seen VAR decisions be looked at when they've given a penalty to change the mind and to remove the penalty. You would expect that it would automatically be a yellow card if you're removing that penalty because it's simulation. And you don't see the referees always go to their book. And that to me makes no sense when you've watched it back and you can clearly make the decision that it was simulation.
Yeah, I think the idea of the simulation yellow has started to fade a little bit. I think it needs to come back and be a more useful tool for referees. It'll help deal with some of this stuff. But it's not going to go away. CONCACAF is going to CONCACAF, and players have to get used to it. And I think this was good for the U.S. players to get this game, to get a final against Mexico ahead of World Cup qualifying, where they're going to go on the road 7 times and play some really difficult teams and play some teams in difficult situations that they're going to have to adapt to. So getting the win, even though it wasn't a pretty performance, is a really important piece for Greg Berhalter and his team.
100%. It's all about momentum and believing, and good teams win even if they don't play well. So they'll take a lot of positivity from that.
In other national team stuff, I'm sure your household was very happy with the nightcap last night, with Colombia getting a big win over Peru. They had a lot of that against 10 men. I think Peru had a red card late in the first half, I guess. But Colombia needed that win in a big way.
It was one of those where if they didn't win, game over, and it's still not looking pretty for them. And as everyone knows, it's more about when are they going to get to play and where are they going to get to play right now as well, because of the unfortunate situations going on in Colombia as well.
And the next qualifier is scheduled to be in Barranquilla against Argentina on the 8th.
I can't see it happening.
I can't either.
I cannot see it happening at all.
I can't either.
I don't think the government wants soccer games. And from what I've heard from our family in Colombia, the biggest issue is for the traveling teams, where the protesters are going to the hotels of the traveling team. So if I was the Argentinian team, I wouldn't be comfortable with traveling into Colombia either at this point.
There's been so much going on with Copa America and other qualifiers and teams with some COVID issues and things that this has maybe been lost in the shuffle a bit. But right now, as we speak on the afternoon of the 4th, that game is booked for the 8th, and I haven't seen anything about what could happen with it. If it gets played, I can't see it being played in Colombia. I just don't know how that gets done.
Definitely, and you mentioned it's not just political problems. The coronavirus is running rampant across South America too because of lack of vaccines. So the whole qualifiers are sort of jeopardized potentially at the moment if they're not able to slow that down as well.
And they're in a really tough spot because they already pushed back the March qualifiers. So, they're really up against it from a schedule and calendar crunch right now. And if they have games that don't get played, I don't know exactly how they do get played under the current schedule because they're going to run out of time.
And then you have to wonder how they, with so many teams competing for so few places, do they go to a points per game basis? Right. And you don't want to mess with South American soccer fans either.
No, it's going to be a mess. And now Copa America, there's reports today that Brazil players are saying they don't want to play. The European-based players are saying they don't want to play. There's reports of calls to players on other teams saying, we don't want you to play. I know Chile, their team was talking about not playing. So there's one more round of qualifiers. Brazil plays Ecuador tonight to finish up this round. There's one more round on the 8th, and then we'll see if a Copa America happens and how that goes. For Atlanta United, they're on a break right now with the international window. It's a double window at the moment, so it's a longer break than we're really used to at this stage of the season. I think for Gabriel Heinze, he's probably pretty happy about it because outside of Joseph Martinez with Venezuela right now and possibly Ezequiel Barco with Argentina's U23s, although I'm not sure if he accepted that call-up or if he went because he was coming back from injury. It's a pretty much the first team training with a couple of weeks in between games and getting a chance to work on things and improve. What are some of the areas, as we've seen, a number of games now in CONCACAF and in MLS, what are some of the areas that you think Atlanta United needs to improve upon for the second not really half. It's more than the second half, but the second portion of the season.
Well, first, I think you're right. This is exactly what Gabriel Heinze wants. It's finally some time to work on the things that you have seen. You've had a good little, preview of how your team is playing right now, and finally you have some time to train consistently and go over things, and you have enough time to make changes. I think sometimes we expect, even when there's only a week between matches, that you're able to fix everything. But you're not. You've got to think. A player needs a day of recovery after the game. Then you're probably going to go over tape or video. You only left with 2 or 3 days of practice, if that, between matches. And at that point, it's very difficult to change something completely because it could go very wrong if you make too many changes in such a short space of time. So this will actually be a moment that is well needed for the Atlanta United team. I think, and it's sore on our minds right now, the Nashville game, again, is game management. The team looked exciting. I was enjoying the game. It was, a fun-flowing match, and I thought we were playing very well. But you can't concede 2 goals in such a short space of time towards the end of the match. That's not good enough. And the cliche is always that 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in soccer, and we showed that because I feel like there was a level of complacency and a level of feeling that the game was done with and won, and we'd already wrapped it up, and Nashville came back. So I think right now it's about game management and understanding, when to play one way and when to shut up shop and when to play safer and when to take those risks. But we talked about it in the preview, Jason. We expected not too many shutouts, and we're showing that, but we are scoring. And the fight is there. And I think there's a lot of positive notes right now. And I'm not enjoying the matches. I will say that.
Yeah, it's a fun, interesting way of watching these games. Like the last 2, I've really enjoyed being on the call. The Seattle game, I was buzzing. It wasn't just because there was a late goal. It was just a fun game with a lot of different things to talk about. Nashville was kind of the same way, and I think what we've seen, at least to my mind, is they've been better defensively than I expected this early. I thought they would give up sloppy goals at times.
The goals aren't really from huge errors. Like we were
not collective errors.
No, not as team. So I think that, and we're not conceding 3 or 4 goals a match. It's one here or there.
And it's a lot of individual stuff. And I think when we get into this idea about how Atlanta closes games out, it's going to be different than I think a lot of people are used to, because I don't see Gabriel Heinze playing a bunker kind of style. I don't see him, adding another center back just to sit back and defend.
No.
But I think it is on the players to recognize these situations, and knowing that you're going to be 1v1 defensively a lot of times. As well as I do that in those battles, you can make the decision as a player, I'm going to be aggressive here and step hard and close this down quickly, or I'm going to lay off a little bit and shepherd this player where I want to take them on the field rather than be aggressive.
Yeah, because when you shepherd and you're patient, you allow people to transition back as well and get bodies behind the ball, and you slow down the style of play. I think sometimes everything is so frantic at times that you need to slow the game down, particularly when you're leading. And again, it's that little bit of gamesmanship we're talking about. It's okay to slow the game down and play it to your speed.
Yeah, it was something that I think was the issue on the first goal that they conceded to Nashville, where Eric Lopez got caught being a little too aggressive with Daniel Lovitz, who is a really good left back getting forward and dangerous and creates opportunities for players all the time. The Lennon Mukhtar part, Mukhtar just beats Lennon to the spot, and he gets there with a step ahead of Lennon. It was maybe a foot off in terms of Lennon being late. But Lopez went to close down Lovitz really tight in a situation where he didn't need to at that moment, because
when you overcommit, you leave all that space.
Yeah, and what you do in that situation is he overcommitted, and Lovitz made the run behind him, and he lost him, and that's where you get into trouble. Lopez is a young player. Lopez is in his first regular season playing at this level and with this amount of expectation. He had his first goal for Atlanta in this match. He's been really good, and I think he's been improving game after game, but that was a moment where his age showed a little bit.
Yeah, and lack of experience.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about how many times has he been in this position? You know, how many times has he been in a game where you're leading 2-0 and the opposition is attacking? Not too many. So it's one of those where he'll get there, but I've been impressed with the way that he's performed, and he definitely looks more confident in every match that he plays.
Yeah, that's been one of the keys, because there was a few games ago that it felt like he was a step or two slow to make decisions, and he's not doing that now. He's flowing a little bit more, and he'll find the balance. I think this team will find that balance. I want to get into something we've talked about a decent bit, because I think we are seeing a lot of progress in it. Brad Guzan in the build-up play. We're seeing some different balls from him. At least I feel like we are. I think he's stepping up a lot higher now, and he
seems more confident in his positioning.
Yeah.
He doesn't look tentative anymore. There were moments early on where it almost looked like he was in two minds between where he was going to position himself. Was he going to position himself on the penalty spot, or was he going to pull himself higher, wider? And we're seeing a lot more legwork. I would be interested to see the stats on how much ground he's covering in a match now compared to the past, because I feel like he is a lot more mobile in that 18 and outside of that 18, and dictating and wanting the ball at his feet a lot more. So he's taking a few risks, and you don't mind to see that, because he's getting those reps and getting better and distributing differently. And if he is confident in his positioning, it's going to allow him a better starting position. And we haven't seen many of those heart and mouth moments of dodgy starting positions.
Yeah, I feel like he's starting so much higher up the field now than he was even a few weeks ago. I mean, now it feels like instead of being 12 yards from goal, or maybe 18, maybe at the top of the 18.
He's 25.
Yeah, he's completely comfortable when the back line is at the midfield stripe. He's comfortable being 30 yards from goal.
Yeah, and it's more of that sweeper position where if there is a long clearance, he's there to tidy things up, and defenders love that from their goalkeeper too, because instead of having to chase the ball back and, recover it themselves, he's there to just give that little, two-touch pass and restart the action again.
I want to compare really quick with you his numbers from 2020 and 2021 from a possession standpoint. So 2020, he played in 23 games. He averaged almost 45 touches per game, 27.7 accurate passes per game. He passed at 77%, 9.3 long balls per game. Now, the one that surprised me for comparing it to 2021 is he's actually averaging slightly more accurate long passes per game. 9.9 versus 9.3, not a ton. But his touches have gone up to 57.3, and his passes per game have gone up to 35 accurate passes per game. He's passing at 74%. That's a pretty big jump for a veteran goalkeeper to make that change at this point in his career. And
100%.
And
that's what I told you I was worried about, if I'm honest. I was worried about him being a very late adjustment in his career. You're not trying to change a 20-year-old goalkeeper that's not hit his prime yet. You're changing a goalkeeper that's particularly, in the twilight of his goalkeeping career, and he's clearly been out practicing, and he is a goalkeeper that strikes me as someone that would be staying behind after practice and, working on those long balls and possession. And it's really impressive, those numbers, to think about a goalkeeper having 55 touches on the ball. It's incredible, really, that he's involved that much in the action, but I think that really helps him. And I think it might be why he's been very sharp with his saves as well, because if you stay in possession and you get those touches with your feet, you're always alert. If you're bypassed consistently and you don't get involved in the game, then you're not alert and you're not always ready and on your toes. So I think that is a really helpful new addition to his goalkeeping repertoire.
It's fascinating scrolling a little bit further back, going back to 2018. he averaged 40.7 touches per game and 20.5 accurate passes per game. That's a huge jump to now. And I don't even think it's completely where it can be yet. I think it feels like he gets better and better every game where he's like, yeah, play me. I'm good. Play me. I'm 40 yards from goal. I don't care.
Players are getting used to the positions that he wants them in too.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the time when we look at passing accuracy, we're always thinking about the player that's making the passes.
Yeah.
But it has a lot to do with the players those passes are going to. Are they positioned in the right place? Are they, my biggest pet peeve, are they stepping to the ball? A ball's not going to be perfect every time, but you can make it accurate by moving towards the ball. So as the team gets used to where he wants to pop and what areas are his most comfortable distributions and where does he want you to position, then those numbers are going to improve even further. I mean, we're only partway through the season, so I've been really impressed. I know I've been very critical on Twitter, and people will notice that hasn't been a topic lately, and I'm very glad because as a member of the GK Union, I don't enjoy negative comments on goalkeepers.
He's been excellent this season, and I really feel like that possession stuff is only going to continue to improve. He's got the long ball in his game, and he always will. He's got that chip into the corner, about a 35, maybe 40-yard ball diagonal to hit the outside back. He's got that whenever he needs it, and we still see that. But he's also more and more comfortable in building up the way that I think Gabriel Heinze wants, where it's draw the opposition in. Don't skip the line with that ball. Play short or play through the middle. Play to Sosa where you can.
And those are heart and mouth passes.
They can
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
As a goalkeeper, you have to be very confident with the personnel that you're playing the ball into as well, because you're giving the ball to players while they're under pressure. But when done effectively and when the players know how to handle it that are receiving it, it can work magic.
Now, I want to compare it really quick to what we're seeing with Atlanta United too as well. And a player who we know is comfortable with the ball at his feet. It's something that he's grown up doing, Rocco Rios Novo. In USL with Atlanta United too, Rocco's averaging fewer touches and fewer accurate passes than Brad Kazan is in MLS. Now, far fewer long balls, and that's the biggest difference. Rocco's only hitting 4.3 accurate long passes, 50% of them, which is a fairly normal number. But 36 accurate passes per game and 89%, 49 touches per game. I was shocked to see that the first team is using Brad more through the season right now, and I think that number is only going to continue to grow, than Rocco's getting used in those situations.
Definitely. But maybe it's younger players, younger personnel, and it's one of those where they'll get used to it and they're still learning as well. But the huge thing is it's a huge compliment to the way that the team trusts Brad as well. And you'd expect it. Gazan is a leader within the team. You'd expect them to trust him. But it's always a compliment to a goalkeeper when your defender does feel comfortable giving you back the ball, even under pressure. They trust that you're going to make the right touch. You're going to set yourself up for the distribution, and you're not going to put them under pressure either.
Now, I'll give you one more, another really good thing for the GK Union here in Atlanta. Ben Lundgaard in his game with Atlanta United 2, which was a very nice one to be part of, the 5-0 win over Tulsa. Ben had 66 touches in that game, 48 accurate passes at 84%. He did hit 9 long balls. He was kind of the, even more involved, but he did have that long ball when he needed it. And Lundgaard's a guy that we talked to before the season, and he said that's an aspect of the game that he is really focused on improving this year because he knows how critical it is to the way Atlanta's going to play. In the one time we've seen him so far so good.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great numbers. We have to take them with a pinch of salt because in a 5-0 game, the opposition's going to be deflated. They're probably giving you a lot more time with the ball out the back. You're popping the ball from your left back over to your right back into your goalkeeper, just sort of playing the way you want to play, but still great numbers. And again, what I love is that you've got 3 goalkeepers that all want to play, that are all performing well. And then you throw Alec Khan into the mix as well, obviously. It's a very strong goalkeeper crew this year. And I think that Atlanta United's always had good goalkeepers, but this feels like the first time that there's really like some challenge and competition going on within.
Yeah, Alec had 39 touches in his one game against Memphis, which was a tough game. So I think that was a game where the Twos actually struggled with possession in general. So it kind of makes a lot of sense to have this many quality goalkeepers in the mix. I'm sure it elevates in situations where you've seen it or you've been part of it, where you have four guys that are competing for time and for spots. It's only going to elevate the group as a whole.
Definitely. And what I like is because all of the players that are eligible to play for the first team know how to play the same way, it's going to allow, Alec Khan, Lundgaard to rotate between whether they play in the twos or on the bench as well. So they can get more minutes either way. And hopefully all the goalkeepers can stay fresh.
Yeah, that 2-3 spot becomes a little bit of a 2A and 2B because they can all fill in and do what both teams need. And when you look at the twos, it's going to be interesting now with Jack Collison taking over. That was made official this week. Matt Lowry was named the academy director. Jack Collison, formerly of West Ham, is now the first-team manager for the twos. And he's been in the program for a couple of years now, but he's going to bring his own spin to it. I'm really curious to see, as a young manager now at the first time at the USL level, what it looks like this Sunday. It's a busy time right now for the twos. Louisville City, a really difficult opponent, comes to town.
Definitely. It's a big challenge for him in his first game, but he'll be wanting to make a mark, and I'm sure the players will want to be playing with him. I'm bound to respect him. He's a player with, he's been a player in recent years too. He's young, so you can see him being a positive role model for these youngsters with the twos. And I think a big component and an obvious reason why he's selected is he has been around the club. He does know the philosophy. So as much as there's going to be some changes, I wouldn't expect the major pieces of the puzzle to be changed too drastically.
Yeah, I think the philosophy will stay the same. I think the idea of the way that they play from a very basic tactical level will stay the same. I am curious to see what his spin is, because every manager has one, whether it's a certain player that they really trust, that they've worked with, and he had the U17s before, so there's players that he's coached that are going to be part of this group, or something, a set piece, something. There's going to be something that he brings to the table that we haven't seen yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is.
And I'm excited that with the international break for the first team, anyone can go ahead and tune into the game.
Yeah, it's going to be a very busy time for the twos. It starts on Sunday at 7:30. If you can make it out to Kennesaw State, join us at the Fraction, or you can watch on ESPN Plus. Myself and John will be on the call, and we're going to be keeping busy not just with Atlanta United 2, with Atlanta United. I know you're doing Peachtree City MOBA games on the men's and the women's side. I had the opportunity to fill in for you on the women's side here recently, and I was a little blown away at the match that I had, because it was North Alabama and Peachtree City, two teams that were 0-2 at the time. It was a really good game, and it was a really well-played game. North Alabama wanted to build out of the back. They tried to stick with it. Peachtree City pressed in a really organized way. Both teams were really well coached. I was blown away by the level of play.
Yeah, it's definitely been exciting. And what I like about WPSL is it's a real nice combination of, there's a lot of college players that are home for the summer and they're trying to stay fit and stay in shape. They're D1 players that have had a really good spring season because of COVID. They've actually got to play competitively and they're rolling straight into these competitive minutes. But then you've also got some OGs that have played professionally in Europe coming, to play in America at the second tier of women's soccer. So it's really fun. And on the USL2 side as well, it's a similar thing too, where a lot of these players have either still got college eligibility and are here trying to get some extra reps and match time in the summer, or they're players that are one step down from professional level and are trying to use this as a trampoline to get into the professional leagues and hope that, a USL 1 team might see them or a championship side might see them. They're still striving to end up as professional soccer players. So it's a really exciting time, and a lot of these players have a lot to prove when it comes to getting to play at the next level as well.
Yeah, I'll get a chance to see the Peachtree City MOBA USL League 2 team here in the next couple of weeks. You can follow their games on MyCuju TV for both the women and the men. I'll have an NPSL game tomorrow with Georgia Revolution over in McDonough hosting the Georgia Storm, two top teams in the division. I've just been shocked. And we had that UPSL final where we saw Atletico Atlanta, seeing NPSL, seeing USL League 2, WPSL, the Atlanta Panthers get started in UWS. Like, there's so much grassroots stuff going on, and the level is just shockingly good.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you go down the tiers of the pyramid, you expect the drop-off to be huge, but that's why it's such an exciting time for soccer in the US, because the drop-off isn't huge, and there's a lot of shining diamonds in the rough in a lot of these teams that, you know, if the right person's watching their match, they've definitely got an opportunity to jump several levels up the pyramid.
Excited to watch you with Peachtree City MOBA and fill in for you later. Hopefully we'll get a chance to call a game here soon because it's been way too long. College will be getting started back up not that long from now. This year is just, I don't know, 2021 is so strange with everything we went through last year. It feels like it's flying by almost too fast.
Definitely. But we're nice to see that, you know, we've got games this year and looking forward to hopefully being able to travel and watch some games back home soon too.
Games and people in the stands, and things feel like they're getting back to normal. As people are looking for your normal takes, where can they find them?
At Jess Talks Footy with an IE.
An IE because you're not a plonker, correct?
Correct.
My new vocabulary word that you taught me last year. I'm still trying to work that in more and more. I haven't called anybody a plonker.
We need to get the plonker of the week back.
Yeah, we do need to get plonker of the week back for sure. I haven't called anybody a plonker on a game call yet, but maybe that happens sometime soon. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we'll be back with another Written on the Pitch sooner rather than later, as there's going to be a lot of soccer to talk about this summer with the Euros, Gold Cup, maybe a Copa America, hopefully an Olympics to talk about on the men's and the women's side. In WSL, there's a ton going on, and we'll be back to talk about it here very soon.